I I don't have any direct background in this. I'm really a hacker who loves to learn and loves to research and loves psychedelics. Yeah, okay. So thanks for going on this lovely tangent for me. I hope you enjoyed it. And now let's talk about what's next. So if Polly and Wally already exist, sound pretty great for the most part, what is on the horizon? So Sasha Shulgin said, I'm looking for tools that can be used for studying the mind, and other people will use the tools in finding out the aspects of the mental process and how it ties to the brain. So Sasha Shulgin said this, and I believe that who he was talking about is Dr. Thomas Ray. So Thomas Ray challenged the predominant paradigm of psychedelic science and the misconception around serotonin VII. He worked with Shulgin and Nichols to have 25 drugs bioassayed for their affinity at a broad range of receptors. And I'm going to show you these drugs now. These drugs were selected by himself and Alexander Shulgin and Dave Nichols. And they represent kind of the basic, like, a really basic academic toolkit of what's out there. So when he bioassayed them, he found, and this is obviously just a few, he found this. Instead of just serotonin 2, he found all of these other receptors which were previously disregarded by psychedelic science. So let's talk about those. Well, first there is serotonin 1. Serotonin 1 activates cognition, language, logic, reason. It's basically like your rationale. If you think about Socrates and the kind of the age of knowledge, of information, and enlightenment, this was likely inspired by a blooming of this receptor. Then there is Midazolam, which is the strongest hit for MDMA. So yeah, it's been misunderstood for a long time that MDMA, that the active thing is serotonin. Yes, it's a crucial ingredient, but the really active ingredient is Midazolam, and it creates feelings of ecstasy, empathy, openness, compassion, peace, acceptance, etc., etc. This is what allows people to release their trauma, and this is what allows people to feel their feelings and forgive those who have wronged them and forgive themselves. Then there's beta 2, which has most likely not been experienced by most people. There aren't very many beta 2 drugs, but it gives you a feeling of exuberance, a joy of life, a joy of living, a sense of home, family, community, and just kind of that feeling of like everything's good, like this radiant sense of joy. Then there's alpha 2. This is the essence of the world around us, the wetness and fluidity of water, the hardness and durability of rock, what you would call a rasa. This is the essence of ourselves and the events and experiences that shape our lives and form who we are. Then we have alpha 1. This gives you a sense of the flow of events from the past through the present and into the future, a sense of a timeline and a sense of history, of events unfolding and liveliness, of vitality of a scene. Then we have histamine. So this is a really interesting one. It gives you a sense of an other. It's how I am able to perceive all of you, and it's how you all are able to perceive me. Because you're not directly experiencing me, you're experiencing your concept of me, which you have constructed in your head based on what you see and what your senses are telling you, right? And this is what Thomas would call the mental organ that allows you to experience that. So this is like your mother's voice in your head, that sense of knowing what someone will say before they say it, or even a vision or encounter with a deceased loved one. Then we have dopamine. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Dopamine adds a sense of profundity, a sense of meaning and knowing and significance and certainty. It can combine with a sense of awe and uncritical certainty, often provoking a religious experience. It is most likely this receptor which is responsible for the positive results of the Good Friday experiment. If you heard of the experiment where some people in the, I don't know if it was the priesthood, but religious devotees were given psilocybin mushrooms, and many of them ranked it above as the most profound experience of their life. They took it during Mass, and many of them had religious experiences. So finally, we come to Sigma, and this is probably my favorite one because it is, let me check on my time. This is probably my favorite one because it is the most active one in decichloroketamine, and also ketamine. It's present in DMT and also ibogaine. It's a very important player in ibogaine. And this is kind of like a premortal awareness, like this is almost like your id, I would say. It's uncivilized, selfish, hedonistic, and emotional. It's pure, it's innocent, it's beyond judgment, honest and uncorrupted. It's very sensitive, and it needs the protection of the ego. It can't be exposed. It's also likely the root of somatic memory. Interestingly, the sigma receptors effectively define and modulate the limbic system. The limbic system is found all along the back of your spine and along your nerves, and it regulates emotion, behavior, instincts, motivation, learning, and long-term somatic memory. It very well may be the source of psychosomatic pain. Not only that, possibly the pain from autoimmune disease and possibly addiction withdrawal comes from sigma. The reason for this hypothesis is the incredible ability of ibogaine to relieve addicts of their withdrawal pains. Like that's amazing. Like it's able to allow a heroin addict to get clean without experiencing the pain of withdrawal. It takes that pain away. And we believe that is rooted, or that at least sigma is a crucial part of that effect. I personally believe it's a combination of sigma along with kappa and mu. I think those three, and serotonin, I think when those three are combined, it has this effect. Finally, we have serotonin VII, which I'm running out of time here, but serotonin VII is kind of like a flavor enhancer. It's kind of like the MSG of psychedelics. It makes everything a little bit better, but not toxic like MSG. It takes things to a higher level, knocks it up a notch, turns the dial up to 11. This is what's most active in DMT and 5-MeO-DMT, LSD, psilocin. It's what makes it, it's what like brings the aliens out, let's say. It can get really weird at high doses of this one. And then finally there's serotonin II, which we discussed this earlier, but serotonin II is basically the gatekeeper of consciousness and allows other receptors to come into consciousness and be fully felt. It really has no flavor of its own, it's just a carrier. So, putting it all into perspective, this is what we've got. And there's also this down here, which I would love to talk about if I had more time, but we can maybe talk about that later. This is the poster I have right there.
And then coming up in October, we've got a one-day conference with Dennis McKenna and more. We are currently open for sponsorships for both the Stamets and McKenna events. So if you've got a business that would like to support our community, a dispensary, a glass store, a naturopath, anything like that, we are currently looking for sponsors. Let's keep Portland visionary.